నమస్తే, వెల్కమ్ టు కార్పొరేట్ న్యూస్. రుణ ఎగవేతదారుల పేర్లను త్వరలోనే వెల్లడిస్తామని కేంద్ర ఆర్థిక మంత్రిత్వ శాఖ ప్రకటించింది. 8 లక్షల కోట్ల ఎన్పీఏతో బ్యాంకింగ్ రంగం ఇబ్బందులు పడుతోందని, పిఎస్యు బ్యాంకులకు రీక్యాపిటలైజేషన్ ఇచ్చే అంశాన్ని పరిశీలిస్తున్నామని కేంద్ర ఆర్థిక మంత్రిత్వ శాఖ ప్రధాన సలహాదారు సంజీవ్ సన్యాల్ తెలిపారు.
There is the newly set up infrastructure fund that may be interested in picking up some of this as a way of, they already have some degree of finance, and this may be an easy way to pick up assets and build up a portfolio quickly at a cheap price. There may be public sector may indeed pick up something, again on a commercial basis. It's not like this is the one strategy, no. If a certain government entity thinks that something makes sense for whatever reason, they're welcome to do it. But in every single case, the primary consideration will be a commercial one.
Okay, so
practicality and commercial decisions is basically what we care about. All I will say is that this discussion has gone fairly deep now. So so I would say that yes, the way we do not want to proceed with the rule of thumb that a good bank and a bad bank get merged and that somehow solves the problem. That is totally not the way this will be done. There may be a case where such a thing happens because of completely different reasons, because it makes sense for some other reasons, branch consolidation or something like that. But as a general strategy, this will not be done. Such a step was taken. You don't have to create this super holding company to do it. Maybe that will be done in the future. But right now the focus is on getting this NPA thing going.
Okay.
Let us not get distracted from that first and primary focus. The delay possibility you did. I just said that it's a possibility, of course, but we hope it will not really happen. I think the law is quite clear. We have new institutions, of course, who have not yet been tested, but we are confident that on the whole, this process will now go through quite quickly. As you can see, there is obviously a lot of focus being and attention being given to the issue. You had a major ordinance come out just a few weeks ago. Now you have this list. I'm sure from your discussions with others in the government that this is being done quite quickly. And remember, this is a matter that has festered for years.
Yeah.
And now we are talking in days and weeks. So this is already a huge progress. Continuously there will be NPAs. This is a process of creating destruction that is part of what we have signed up for when we signed up for a market-driven entrepreneurial economy. So of course, every year a new bunch will come up. And the point is that on an ongoing basis, we need to keep clearing it up. In fact, the whole point is that we need to get rid of this social stigma against bankruptcy and exit.
Of course.
And just do it as a matter of routine. So yes, there will be 17, there will be in 18, there will be in 19, and 20 there will be new cases. The problem here was, for a number of reasons, we accumulated a huge bunch of them and it's jammed up the system. So this jammed up system is being cleared up so that the machine now begins to flow, the system begins to flow in a more normal and orderly way. Well, hopefully not. I mean, that is the whole point about doing whatever we are doing. That's why the ordinance came up. That's why this list has very quickly been drawn up. So you're going to see basically in these cases, you're going to have, these things being sped up, and that's why you have this particular oversight committee-based system, because the idea here is the oversight committee makes sure, one, two, that whatever plan they come up with between the lenders and the debtor, I mean, the RBI is not telling them what to decide. It's between them to decide. But once they've decided whatever it is, the oversight committee ensures compliance, which is a very major problem. That everybody, once they've signed on to it, keep their word. And finally, the point about the oversight committee is that the oversight committee will, whatever agreement it will put a stamp of approval on it to basically certify that processes were followed and that it was all kosher.
Okay.
So then what happens as a result of that is that if in future there is an investigation, the participants in the negotiations can pull out this piece of paper and say, hey, look at this, the oversight committee of the Reserve Bank has essentially approved it, therefore this was all clean and transparent. So that is why that particular process using an oversight committee was put in place in the first place. So that has been taken into account.
మొండి బకాయిల సమస్య నుంచి బ్యాంకింగ్ రంగం నెమ్మదిగా బయటపడే అవకాశాలు కనబడుతున్న నేపథ్యంలో PSU బ్యాంకుల్లో ఒక్కసారిగా ర్యాలీ వచ్చింది. రానున్న కాలంలో బలహీనంగా ఉన్న PSU బ్యాంకులను బలోపేతం చేసేందుకు విలీన ప్రక్రియను మొదలు పెడతామని వార్తలు రావడంతో బ్యాంకింగ్ షేర్లు ఊపందుకున్నాయి.
మొండి బకాయిల సమస్య నుంచి బ్యాంకింగ్ రంగం నెమ్మదిగా బయటపడే అవకాశాలు కనబడుతున్న నేపథ్యంలో పలు బ్రోకింగ్ సంస్థలు ఈ రంగంలోని 5 షేర్లను కొనుగోలు చేయవచ్చంటూ సిఫార్సు చేస్తున్నాయి. నిరర్ధక ఆస్తులను తగ్గించడంలో భాగంగా టాప్ 12 ఖాతాల సంగతి ఏంటో తేల్చమని బ్యాంకులను ఆదేశించిన రిజర్వ్ బ్యాంక్ వీరిపై దివాలా కోడ్ ప్రకారం చర్యలు తీసుకోవాలని ఆదేశించడంతో ఈ పాజిటివ్ అంశం అనంతరం లబ్ధి పొందనున్న బ్యాంకులలో ఇన్వెస్ట్ చేస్తే మంచి రిటర్న్స్ వస్తాయని సూచిస్తున్నాయి. బ్యాంక్ ఆఫ్ అమెరికా మెరిల్ లించ్ ఈ షేర్కు ఇచ్చిన టార్గెట్ ధర 393. వచ్చే 12 నెలల కాలంలో ఈ టార్గెట్ ధరకు చేరుకునే అవకాశం ఉందని అంచనా వేస్తోంది. అసెట్ క్వాలిటీ పెరుగుతుండడం లాంటి అంశాలను బేరీజు వేసుకుని ఈ టార్గెట్ ఇచ్చినట్టు వెల్లడించింది. బ్యాంక్ ఆఫ్ అమెరికా మెరిల్ లించ్ ఈ షేర్కు ఇచ్చిన టార్గెట్ ధర 2100. టార్గెట్ కాల వ్యవధి వెల్లడించినప్పటికీ రిటర్న్ ఆన్ ఈక్విటీ నిలకడగా 22%, కాస్ట్ ఆఫ్ ఈక్విటీ 12.25%, వృద్ధి రేటు 8%గా ఉండడాన్ని బేరీజు వేసుకుని ఈ టార్గెట్ ఇస్తున్నట్టు ప్రకటించింది. ఐసిఐసిఐ బ్యాంక్ వచ్చే 6 నుంచి 9 నెలల కాలానికి ఈ షేర్ను హోల్డ్ చేయమని క్రెడిట్ సూచిస్తోంది. ఆర్బీఐ తీసుకున్న తాజా నిర్ణయం ఈ బ్యాంకుకు అనుకూల అంశమని చెబుతోంది. హెచ్డిఎఫ్సి బ్యాంక్ ఆఫ్ అమెరికా మెరిల్ లించ్ ఈ షేరు టార్గెట్ ధరను 1800గా విశ్లేషిస్తోంది. ప్రైవేట్ రంగ బ్యాంకుల్లో హెచ్డిఎఫ్సి బ్యాంక్ ఆర్బీఐ నిర్ణయం వల్ల అత్యంత ఎక్కువగా లబ్ధి పొందనుందని అభిప్రాయపడుతోంది. ప్రావిజనింగ్స్ బెటర్గా ఉన్న షేరుగా గుర్తించినట్లు వెల్లడించింది. బ్యాంక్ ఆఫ్ బరోడా సిఎల్ఎస్ఏ అంచనా ప్రకారం రిజర్వ్ బ్యాంక్ ఆదేశాల అనంతరం అత్యంత ఎక్కువగా లబ్ధి పొందనున్న బ్యాంక్ ఆఫ్ బరోడా మొండి బకాయిలు అత్యధికంగా 8 నుంచి 20% ఉన్న కేటగిరీలో ఉన్న బ్యాంక్ కావడంతో తాజా చర్యల వల్ల బ్యాంక్ ఆఫ్ బరోడాకు ప్రయోజనం చేకూరనుందని సిఎల్ఎస్ఏ అంచనా వేస్తోంది.
ముంబై కేంద్రంగా పనిచేసే నిర్మాణ సంస్థ కెపాసిటీ ఇన్ఫ్రా ప్రాజెక్ట్స్ త్వరలోనే ఐపీఓకు రానుంది. దీనికోసం సంస్థ మార్కెట్ రెగ్యులేటర్ సెబీకి ముసాయిదా పత్రాలను సమర్పించగా ఐపీఓకు అనుమతి లభించింది. ఈ ఐపీఓ ద్వారా సుమారు 400 కోట్లను సమీకరించేందుకు కెపాసిటీ ఇన్ఫ్రా ప్రణాళిక వేస్తోంది.
కెపాసిటీ ఇన్ఫ్రా ప్రాజెక్ట్ పబ్లిక్ ఆఫర్ను ప్రకటించింది. దీనికి మార్కెట్ నియంత్రణ సంస్థ సెబీ ఆమోదం తెలిపింది. ధరల శ్రేణిని త్వరలో నిర్ణయించుకున్నారు. 10 ముఖ విలువ గల షేర్లను జారీ చేయడం ద్వారా మొత్తం 400 కోట్లను సమీకరించనున్నట్లు కంపెనీ పేర్కొంది. ఐఓపీ అనుమతిని కోరుతూ కంపెనీ ఏప్రిల్ నెలలో సెబీకి ముసాయిదా పత్రాలు జారీ చేయగా జూన్ నెలలో దీనికి ఆమోదం లభించింది. సమీకరించిన నిధులను కంపెనీ మూలధన కార్పొరేట్ అవసరాలకు వినియోగించనుంది. ఆఫర్కు యాక్సిస్ క్యాపిటల్, ఐఐఎఫ్ఎల్ హోల్డింగ్స్, వివ్రో ఫైనాన్షియల్ సర్వీసెస్ బుక్ రన్నింగ్ లీడ్ మేనేజర్లుగా వ్యవహరించనున్నాయి.
సహారా ఇండియా లైఫ్ ఇన్సూరెన్స్ నిర్వహణను తమ చేతుల్లోకి తీసుకుంటున్నట్టు బీమా నియంత్రణ సంస్థ ఐఆర్డీఏ తెలిపింది. ఖాతాదారుల ప్రయోజనాలను కాపాడేందుకు ఈ నిర్ణయం తీసుకుంటున్నట్టు ఐఆర్డీఏ తెలిపింది.
సహారా గ్రూప్కి చెందిన సహారా ఇండియా లైఫ్ ఇన్సూరెన్స్ నిర్వహణను తమ చేతుల్లోకి తీసుకుంటున్నట్లు బీమా నియంత్రణ సంస్థ ఐఆర్డీఏ తెలిపింది. ఖాతాదారుల ప్రయోజనాలను కాపాడేందుకే ఈ నిర్ణయం తీసుకున్నామని సంస్థ తెలిపింది. డిపాజిటర్లకు 1000 కోట్లు తిరిగి చెల్లించినందుకు గ్రూప్ యజమాని సుబ్రతో రాయ్ ఆరోపణలు ఎదుర్కొంటున్న విషయం విదితమే. సహారా ఇండియా లైఫ్ ఇన్సూరెన్స్ నిర్వహణ కోసం ఐఆర్డీఏఐ జనరల్ మేనేజర్ ఆర్కే శర్మను అడ్మినిస్ట్రేటర్గా నియమిస్తున్నట్లు IRDAI పేర్కొంది. ఈ నియామకం తక్షణం అమల్లోకి వస్తుందని తెలిపింది. బీమా నియంత్రణ చట్టం 1938 నిబంధనలకు లోబడి అడ్మినిస్ట్రేషన్ తన బాధ్యతను నిర్వర్తించాల్సి ఉంటుందని సంస్థ తెలిపింది.
గ్లెన్మార్క్ ఫార్మా తయారు చేసిన ఔషధాలకు US FDA తాత్కాలిక ఆమోదం తెలిపింది. మధుమేహ వ్యాధిగ్రస్తులు తీసుకునే 2 రకాల మందులకు FDA ఆమోదం పొందింది.
డ్రగ్ మ్యానుఫ్యాక్చరింగ్ సంస్థ గ్లెన్మార్క్ ఫార్మాస్యూటికల్స్ అమెరికా అనుబంధ సంస్థలో తను తయారు చేసిన సాక్సాగ్లిప్టన్ ఔషధాలకు అమెరికా ఔషధ ఆహార నియంత్రణ ప్రాధికారిక సంస్థ US FDA తాత్కాలిక ఆమోదం తెలిపింది. ఆంగ్లేయ ఔషధాలకు జెనరిక్ రకమైన ఈ మాత్రలను మధుమేహ వ్యాధిగ్రస్తులకు రక్తంలో చక్కెర శాతాన్ని నియంత్రించేందుకు ఉపయోగిస్తారు. ఈ ఔషధాలకు గత ఏడాది అమెరికాలో $518.5 మిలియన్ మార్కెట్ లభించింది. కంపెనీ పోర్ట్ఫోలియో ప్రకారం గ్లెన్మార్క్ తయారు చేసిన 117 ఔషధాలను అమెరికాలో పంపిణీ చేసేందుకు US FDA ఆమోదం తెలుపగా మరో 68 ANDAలు అనుమతి పొందాల్సి ఉంది.
మరిన్ని కార్పొరేట్ వార్తల్ని ఇప్పుడు చూద్దాం.
So actually, at a very high level, we are a technology product company which is building telecommunication equipment. So from a very simple angle, if you think of using broadband or any high capacity bandwidth, it goes over the equipment that we design, manufacture and sell around the world. So on a fiber optic network, the electronics that goes on top of it is what we do. So when you're doing hundreds of megabits of terabits of transmission capacity, that is exactly what we do. Very interesting. So in fact, what Tejas is doing is something very unique because in India we have very high quality IT services companies. We are probably first of the blocks as a product company out of India in the tech sector. So what the difference between a product company and a services company is that you got to invest all the money in R&D and technology and innovation upfront, which we've been able to do over the last 4 or 5 years. And once you're able to get to a certain size and you have a product that is world class, which we do, we are able to scale up the business quite comfortably. So if you see from FY15 to FY17, we more than doubled our revenues, but correspondingly, if you see from a headcount perspective, we were a 500 people company in FY15 and we are a 600 people company right now. So just by adding 100 people, we are able to go from 400 crore revenue to around 900 crores of revenue. So that's kind of the scalability or operating leverage one gets in a technology product company, and that's something which we think is quite exciting from an Indian angle. So actually, to be more accurate, we are having funding for 3 different purposes. One is actually for R&D, so we're going to invest more in R&D and increase.
So that's 45 crores.
That's correct. And the second thing is working capital is also something which has dominated our business because as an infrastructure provider, usually the payment cycles were a little bit longer, and I say were in the past because over the last 2 years, if you see, our working capital has dramatically come down. And then the third purpose was also, so after the working capital, we'll become a debt-free company, so which basically makes our balance sheet much more stronger. And the third and equally important reason I would say is that as a product company from India trying to go global, we've got to have a much stronger balance sheet. So when we are talking to operators who want to give very large orders, they want to see us competing with giants which are from China and the US, and they want to make sure that we have a balance sheet to do that. So by taking the IPO money, we're going to strengthen the balance sheet as well, which will allow us to scale our international operations. If you really see, international business, for example, grew 70% year on year last year. But we just want to make sure that we can continue with the momentum and essentially invest in the sales marketing as well on an international side. So those are all the 3 purposes I would. Yeah. So actually speaking, there were 2 choices in 2012, 13, 14 when we were in a little bit of a cash squeeze situation. We could have invested a lot less in R&D and then actually put that more into the working capital for execution of the business. The conscious call we took is let's invest in R&D because what you invest in R&D today is going to pay back few years later. As a result, a few of the projects that we were doing were decongested over the last few years, and that's why if you see our receivable days have come down by 100 days over the last 2 years. Our working capital finance cost has again dramatically come down over the last 2 years. So I think it's not actually fair to say that just because we have exposure to PSU business, the payment cycles are longer. Actually, it's more of whether you're in a supply business, which is what we primarily do. Around 90% of our revenues now are on product supplies, where the working capital is not a challenge. When you're doing more of a project business, which is more of a turnkey, which is around 10 to 15% of our business, that's where potentially sometimes the working capital gets stretched. And at a macro level, you talked about customer concentration. There again, if you see, 2/3 of our revenues are in India, 1/3 is international, and within India, it's about a 60% government, 40% private operators. So I think in that sense, it's, and internationally we are in 60 countries and growing. So I would say that the nature of our business, which is the telecom equipment, we are in a B2B business. So there is naturally going to be a customer concentration, because in every country, you'll have 5 or 10 large customers that you can go after. But once we have spread that customer base across the world, the customer concentration risk is no different than any other peer group that we have from US or China for that matter. So actually, first thing you mentioned that India as well as the international. So India by itself is the world's single largest market, which is going from a voice-based infrastructure to database infrastructure. So I think India itself is going to grow at a very, very fast pace. And in our business, while we talked about customer concentration, the reverse part of that is stickiness of the business. So more than all our customers, we've never lost a customer in that sense. So once we win a customer, we are there forever. No. So in fact, there are two aspects of our India business. So the private telcos are on a completely different trajectory, because they are moving their voice networks to data. And we are in all the major private telcos. So when they spend money in optical, and the optical transmission, the data business that we are in, is probably the least discretionary part of their capex. They have to invest into this, because this is how they network. It will continue for the next 5-10 years. And why I say 5-10 years? Because India only has 20% of their cell towers are on fiber. So there's a lot of catch up to be done.
Okay, fair point.
And the government side, by the way, it's again, the BharatNet is just a beginning. So it's a 45,000 crore project. 2.5 lakh villages have to be connected. At this point in time, less than 100,000 villages are connected. And think about it this way. When each of these villages which have no connectivity start generating 100 megabits of data, the tehsil to which they connect get blocked. So you have to upgrade that, then the district and so on. So you're again talking of a 5 to 10 year cycle. Second question about the Africa and the international markets. So it was, I would say, a combination of Southeast Asia, Africa, and a little bit of Latin America, all the emerging markets. So let me come to the second part of your question, which was that there's an inherent risk when you do international business in these countries. So let me put you a simple statistics in front of you. In our life cycle of our business for the last 16 years, our total provisioning in terms of bad debts is around 1%. And if I take two customers away, one was which went bankrupt and another which is a BIFR case in India, it's 0.7%. So I think the nature of our business, because once we supply equipment, customer needs us for 10 years. So it is not in their interest to not pay us. So I think our payment risk is significantly lower compared to probably assets which are supposed to be less riskier in terms of lending. The second part which you mentioned is that competitive intensity. So let me again give you another example. India is the world's largest free market for telecom equipment. I mean, and it is also the most competitive. I think our cost of services in India are the lowest in the world, and correspondingly the equipment costs are the lowest in the world. This is the market, it's a free for all. Number 1 to number 10 on optical transmission in India, except for us, are all foreign companies. So we have been competing with them for last 10 years. We have seen all the curveballs thrown at us, and despite all of that, we have come out strong, and we are winning all the networks. And the reason for that is very simple, and this is something which has not been explored before, and I'm very happy to kind of share that with you. So about 15 years back, when voice networks used to be dominating in the world, hardware and manufacturing was the large asset. That was the competitive advantage. Today, when data networks are getting built around the world, software and intellectual property is the new fuel. And that is something which we are very good in India. And our product architecture is really what we call software-defined hardware, which basically means the hardware is the base, all the intelligence comes from software. So I think that kind of naturally fits into us. And with all the IPR, all the technology we have developed, anywhere in the world that we are able to compete, in terms of getting a market access, we are selected technically and we are winning. And that's why we have more than 60 countries where we won. We've got 50 customers in Africa, 50 in Southeast Asia. So I think competition-wise, we know what it takes to compete with the big guys. Our R&D efficiency is superior to anybody else in the world because we can do 5 times more R&D.
So you're sure that will not be
absolutely. And we have gone through, by the way, multiple technology cycles. So as a management team, if you think, we went through a technology cycle and we went through a business cycle. So out of the 45,000 crore budget, if I were to put it as a rule of thumb, in the initial stages, around 15 to 20% of that would go into the electronics, which is the transmission equipment that we supply. We are in the phase 1 of those supplies. We are probably among the largest supplier of that to the government of India, and we've already done a lot of supplies for the GPON or the fiber to the home equipment which connects the villages to the thing. That is also under the preferential market access program of Make in India. So what that basically means, if there's a government procurement and there's an Indian product available, the government is going to give a preference to buy that, and we of course get advantage from that. So actually, first of all, the free cash flows have started to get very well. In fact, last year we converted around 95% of our EBITDA into cash. So I think that is kind of getting to a nice steady state. So I'm not concerned about that. Coming back to your question about the growth rate, it's a little bit difficult to predict the exact percentage, but I can say the following. India itself is going to be the large as well as the fastest growing market in the world, and we are incumbents in all the major accounts in private as well as telcos, government in India. Southeast Asia, Africa are India minus 1 or 2 years in terms of their digital maturity, and we are again getting significant success despite multinational and global competition. And third, I would say our product architecture is very unique, and the business model of a product company from India is also creating a new scenario where on the same financials, when you look at our global peers, they are hardly making any profits, if at all. I would say we see very exciting growth prospects. Last few years as a product company have given us a good indicator. If we continue to execute well, I think there's a good possibility that we should be able to sustain the momentum.
Very excited ranges.
No, I think definitely, yeah. So I think we should be able to, again, execute on plan. The opportunity is very clear, and that's really where I would say.
Cool. ఇవి కార్పొరేట్ న్యూస్ విశేషాలు. కీప్ వాచింగ్ TV5 Money.